Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. So today, what we are going to do is we have an expert guest. His name is Mark. He's work at Microsoft. We are going to look into Teams Premium. I'll let Mark introduce himself. Hey Mark.
Hey, Susant. Yeah, g'day all. My name's Marc Dudok. I'm a technical specialist here at Microsoft in Australia. I've been at Microsoft for about 13 years, covering a range of different technologies. But I've kind of spent the last 6 or 7 years of my career focused on Guide for Business, Teams, and now a lot of focusing on Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is really exciting.
Awesome. So Mark, so think of me as somebody who doesn't know about Teams Premium, and you help me understand what is Teams Premium, what is its value, what's its pricing, why would anybody look for Teams Premium over the Teams, things like that.
Effectively, Teams Premium is a additional set of capabilities above and beyond the capabilities that exist in Teams Core. So when I think about Teams Premium, I'm thinking about features that exist in a couple of categories.
Hmm.
Um, the first is uh, intelligent productivity. Um, Inside of this intelligent productivity kind of pillar, we're talking about really AI features, things that you might have seen recently with Copilot, things like intelligent recap. We've got live caption translation, so we can translate captions from a spoken language into a caption language. So if I'm speaking
Hmm.
English and you want to have that caption translated into um, one of kind of 50 other languages, you can do that. It's kind of
Hmm.
part of some of the AI capabilities that we've got now in Teams Premium. Um, we also have some advanced protection capabilities, things like being able to apply um, a sensitivity label, so purview information protection, and we can get into that a little bit more deeply. But being able to apply a sensitivity label and apply specific controls based on that label. Um, and then we move into features that allow for kind of richer engagement. We're talking things like customization for meeting backgrounds, lobby backgrounds. We're talking the ability to host um, virtual appointments and get kind of telemetry and really deep reporting into what's happening from an appointment perspective. And then there's some admin capabilities. We've got some real-time meeting alerts that we can use to alert admins to, perhaps someone in the executive team is having a bad meeting. We can alert in real time that's occurring and try and take some steps to improve it. And then we've also got some enterprise content delivery network capability, or eCDN capability, that um, help us make efficient use of our bandwidth for large scale events. So at a very high level, that they're kind of some of the key capabilities that exist in Teams Premium.
Yep.
There are more, but yeah, that's kind of the high level.
Is that all a single SKU feature, or like do we have to add on multiple add-ons to get all these features?
Yeah, good question. So you obviously have your Teams base license,
Yep.
so that encompasses the Teams core capability. When we talk about licensing in Teams, we kind of think of it in a few different stages. We've got our Teams core, we've got um, the additional Teams phone licensing that is an add-on. So if you want to use Teams for calls, and we have our Teams meeting room licensing, so lighting up specific devices inside of meeting rooms to enable those rooms to join Teams meetings. And then we have Teams Premium, again, is a separate SKU. It's just called Teams Premium.
Yep.
Um, some of the features inside of Teams Premium can be licensed independently. Specifically, that's the Enterprise Content Delivery Network capability. So to answer your question directly, yes, there's a single SKU, but often at times it gets a little bit complicated when we're talking about Teams licensing, depending on what it is you're trying to do.
Awesome. All right. So now it's up to you to take me through what are the features of Teams Premium and where I can find all this information.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just going to start here, really on the landing page for Teams Premium. This is a place where you can go to kind of just get a very high level view of what is Microsoft Teams Premium, how you can get it. You can activate a trial here as well, if you want to kind of try out some of the features in advance of buying a license or a suite of licenses.
Is
Um,
it a tenant-based licensing or a per-user-based licensing?
oh, good question. Um, and in fact, that's probably a good tab I'll bring up later in the discussion. But depending on the feature, it can be licensed a little bit differently. So when we're talking about, for example, the advanced virtual appointments capability or some of the advanced meeting capabilities, um, typically just the meeting organizer that needs a license,
Yeah.
but there are some features that will need tenant-wide licensing. So let me just see if I can bring this up quickly. You can see here in this, this is our Teams Premium licensing documentation.
Yep.
This lists kind of, again, at a very high level, some of the things that I talked about at the very beginning,
Yep.
where we've got some of these additional features. This is what we consider core Teams licensing. And then when
Yep.
we look at Teams Premium licensing, here's kind of a list of additional capabilities that you get. These tables go for a little while, but a little bit further down here, we have a really nice table that shows which features are applied to organizers, attendees, users, or admins. So to answer your question, we have some features that are applied at the organizer level, some
Yep.
features that are applied at the attendee or user level, and then features applied at the IT admin level. So if you want to get a view of maybe how many licenses your organization might require, this is the breakdown that'll give you that.
Okay. Awesome.
So just jumping back quickly to the introductory page for Teams Premium, here you can get we're going to talk through a lot of this today, but there's some really useful short videos that give you a view of what some of the features and capabilities are inside of Teams Premium. Again, talking to the AI-powered meetings or the more intelligent pillar that I mentioned at the top, through to deeper engagement and kind of personalized experiences with backgrounds and some of that meeting protection stuff that I talk through. So this is a really good kind of reference point to get started with Teams Premium.
Hey, Mark, quick question before you move into the next one. If somebody's got Copilot license for M365, does that mean they don't need to get Teams Premium license, or does it complement each other?
Let's talk through that a little bit more when we
Further
start to
ahead?
talk about some of the more intelligent features. Meeting
Okay.
recap is one of the key capabilities inside of Teams Premium.
Awesome.
Um, and that also exists for Copilot. So I'll say that Copilot for Microsoft 365, that is. So I've got a bit of a slide that I can show you that talks to where you would need Teams Premium versus Copilot. So I'll
Okay.
make that nice and clear. We also have, just get to the top here. Here's an overview for admins. So for all the IT admins out there, if you're looking at starting an implementation for Teams Premium, this is kind of the go-to place for Teams Premium, how to administer the features and capabilities. Typically see a little, these features require Teams Premium up the top. But anywhere where you see, Teams Premium is required for this capability, that's a hint that you'll need a license
Okay.
for that particular feature.
All right. So in the first section, we learned about the high level features of Teams Premium. And towards the end, Mark explained about the Teams Premium admin level features as well. In this part, Mark is going to help us understand the intelligent productivity part of Teams Premium, particularly live captions. And he's going to help us understand the main difference between Copilot license and Teams Premium license. Let's go and enjoy this part.
So what I'm going to show now is a view of the intelligent recap capability inside of Teams Premium. And this is a capability that I use daily. And in fact, the feedback that we get from a lot of our customers is this is a very, very powerful capability to help them really cut down the time required to A, catch up on meetings, and B, take notes for meetings. So this is the Teams client, and here I have a a call that is a monthly call that exists for our kind of community internally here at Microsoft. And you can see here on the left-hand side, I can click, back to the history of this call. This is going to be a very, very familiar experience for many of you. We've got the chat files, but when a user is licensed with Teams Premium, they get a recap tab. Now, this recap tab, I think is really cool. Firstly, it's storing all of the assets related to that meeting. So we're talking about the video, so the recording of the meeting. We're also capturing any content that was shared inside that meeting. So PowerPoint decks, no longer do I have to go looking for where was that deck that was shared inside of this meeting. I can just go back to the meeting reference, the chat history, hit the recap tab, and the deck will be right there. In addition, we break down here the speakers, so who spoke in this meeting. Maybe I only care about maybe what my boss had to say or my project lead had to say. I don't want to sit through an entire a section of a meeting just to hear my team lead for 5 minutes, right? In this instance, maybe I want to skip to what Bill had to say. I can come down here and click on the very specific timeline marker for when Bill was speaking, and I can jump and hit play on that specific section. So really easily can I kind of jump through in and around a Teams meeting. We also break up not only speakers, but we break the meeting down into topics. These are all topics which are determined by AI. So if you've got a slide, for example, with a title, we might pull the title of the slide if depending on what somebody says, when they introduce a particular topic, we'll add it as a topic that was discussed here. We also break down the meeting into chapters. So, you can see here we started product development and updates, and then we had some discussions. And again, we can just simply and easily click through to the topics that we're interested in or the chapters that we're interested in. In addition, we've got some AI-generated notes here. So this is using the GPT language models to summarize what was discussed during that meeting. So you can see it's likely going to be blurred for many of you or for all of you, but the meeting notes do a really good job at summarizing what was discussed in the meeting. And then it's also determined some follow-up tasks that show if someone used language to suggest that there was a task to be done and who it was to be done by, it will be listed here in the tasks section. We can also do things like look at mentions. This particular meeting I wasn't mentioned by name, but if I was mentioned by name, I'll have an at mention there, and I can jump to that point in the recording to really just quickly catch up on what it was that I missed.
And how long does this data is being retained, like this particular data, like the transcriptions and the recap, the files which have been uploaded, things like that?
Yeah, it's gonna depend on how long you retain your
All
transcripts and your recordings. Yes,
okay.
so most organizations have got a retention policy that determines the life cycle of these
Okay.
types of assets.
Cool.
The last thing I forgot to mention here is I don't know whether we have it here, but typically we can jump out into Stream to view this, and it will appear along the timeline markers here. And it's a capability that I use really regularly to consume technical content. So at Microsoft, we often have a barrage of content coming at us to keep us kind of trained and ready. But typically the way I learn is by seeing what's going on. So if I want to see when somebody started sharing their screen, we'll present a timeline marker here along the timeline that you can see here to indicate when a screen was shared
All right.
It's
That's,
been really powerful in kind
yeah,
of accelerating the way that I consume training content.
yeah,
Um, and lastly, we can jump between different meetings here too. So this, as I said,
right.
this is a monthly meeting. If I want to go back to the meeting that happened in April, I can jump back to that particular meeting as.
So
Any more
this,
questions?
no, no, on the recap, no. So when you have Teams premium license, recap comes by default, right?
It does,
Like,
yes.
yeah,
Yep.
okay, cool.
All right. Talking about again the AI capabilities, one of the features is live caption translation.
Yep.
So for a typical meeting inside of Teams, you can translate that, or you can put a caption on that Teams meeting that just uh, captions the spoken language in the same language that's being spoken. If you are wanting to see a caption in an alternate language, we can use live translated captions. So here you can see a bit of a breakdown in the Teams client what this looks like. So when you select the language, you can choose the spoken language, and you can also change the caption language. And here you can see you can translate into a multitude of different languages. I think, we break down supportability for all of the languages here, and then the supported translation languages there. So really useful capability if you've got um, presence in multiple countries. I know that when we at Microsoft, when we often deal with um, audiences from as far west as India all the way through to New Zealand. So India, Southeast Asia, Japan, um, to New Zealand. Okay, you can see that now.
Yeah. What are we going to look into next?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come back to the question that you had about um, uh, Copilot and Teams
Oh,
Premium.
right, right.
So when we're talking about some of the features and capabilities in Premium, so that meeting recap capability is also licensed with Copilot for Microsoft 365. We're seeing a lot of organizations look to leverage both depending on the scenario. So here, we might have Copilot for Microsoft 365. And for those who haven't seen it, Copilot for Microsoft 365 allows you to introduce a generative AI capability inside of your Microsoft 365 apps. So inside of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Loop, Whiteboard, etc. Um, it also brings in a chat experience to help with information discovery and content creation, being able to reason over content quite quickly. So I might even jump back to that meeting that I had open before and show the difference. But when we're talking about Teams Premium, we're talking about a static recap of content inside of Teams. So you can see here we've got intelligent recap marked by this border on the left-hand side. This is what I was just walking you through earlier. And this is, the meeting notes and the follow-up tasks, the timeline markers that I was speaking about. That's all static content and won't change. Where we bring in Copilot to augment this experience is the ability to have a conversational style interaction with a meeting that's either in progress or uh, happened in the past. So to be clear, Copilot for Microsoft 365 includes both experiences. So you'll see this intelligent recap capability, and you'll also get this Copilot sidebar that you can use, as I said, during or post meeting to have kind of a conversation. I'll show you what that looks like quickly. I'm just going to stop sharing. I'll jump back to the Teams window. All right, so this is the meeting recap capability that I just walked you through. But because I'm licensed for Copilot, I also have a Copilot button that appears here. This allows me to ask specific questions of this meeting. and I've asked questions of it in the past. Things like were the new slash commands mentioned in this call? So at build recently, we announced some additional slash commands inside of Teams to shortcut some of the ability for someone to slash chat or do a whole bunch of different things inside of Teams without having to shift your hand to a mouse, for example. So I can ask, as you can see here, were the new slash commands mentioned in this call, and it can reason over the transcript and give me an answer. So this goes even further than the intelligent recap capability, bringing in the ability to reason over, as I said, the transcript and other content inside of that meeting. So jumping back just quickly to these couple of slides here, you can see kind of a bit of a workflow of how you might use Intelligent Recap and Copilot together. So again, if you're wanting to catch up on content of a meeting, see at a high level what was discussed, skip to where somebody was speaking. Intelligent Recap inside of Teams Premium will give you that. Anytime you want to extend that across to being able to ask questions about something specific inside of a meeting, then that's when a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license will be required. So hopefully that answers that question and clarifies that. That's a question we get quite often.
Yeah.
And again, just to be clear, Intelligent Recap comes as a part of a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license
Okay.
as well.
In the previous section, I hope you understood everything about live captions and how the licensing differ from Copilot to Teams Premium. And in this part, Mark is going to help us understand the advanced protection features of Teams Premium. He's going to touch base on sensitivity label. He's going to walk you through the steps what you can perform in your admin portal as well. This particular part is very useful for Teams admin who is trying to learn how can you apply these features and what are the different features available for admins to enable for Teams Premium. Let's go and learn that.
We're going to shift gears quickly and chat about some of the advanced protection capabilities that we've got inside of Teams. Uh, I find this to be a really useful article. It's called Configure Teams Meetings with 3 Tiers of Protection. This breaks down a really topical conversation for customers. At least a lot of the customers that I work with, this is a huge priority for many, if not all of them. But this article talks to the concept that we have often we'll have 3 different types of meetings. We'll have, what do we want to have for your everyday regular Teams meeting? What settings do we want to apply for those meetings that may be a little bit more sensitive? And then what do we want to do for those meetings that are extra sensitive or highly sensitive? And we kind of break down a bit of advice here about some of the controls that you have available. And some of our recommendations. You can take these and obviously do what you want with them, but this is kind of how we see it. But you can see, baseline, we might say, we want to allow camera, we want to allow mic. We don't want to apply a watermark to everyone's video feed. So, however, in a sensitive or a highly sensitive discussion, we might want to turn some of these features on. So when we start to look at some features that may be new to many of you, we've got watermarking. So watermarking applies a watermark across any content or video feeds that you've got on screen. So what that's intended to do is help deter data leakage. So on my video feed inside of a Teams meeting, I'll have my email address plastered all over that screen. So if somebody was sharing a product demonstration, some prototype hardware or something like that, if I was to take a screenshot and then post that to Twitter or X, it would have my email address all across it, watermarked. So people would be able to attribute where that leak came from and know it was me that did it.
That's a really good point, Mark. One additional question is it can I apply this meeting, or like is it like once you apply it, it's going to apply to all the sessions or all the meetings I'm going to go for? Like for
Yeah, so
example,
this,
when I go into a customer meeting, I just want that, but not on an internal call.
yeah, absolutely. So this is a per meeting. So all
All
of
right.
these settings that you see here
Yeah.
um, are a um, per meeting setting. So that's a great question, and I probably should have covered that earlier. But effectively, what we're trying to do here is all of these settings are a part of what we have as our meeting options. So when you schedule a Teams meeting,
Yeah.
um, you go into your calendar, hit new meeting. You're presented with a meeting options dialog, and I might just switch to that sharing experience quickly, and I'll show you what that looks like
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
just for clarity. What you're seeing here is a pretty empty Teams client. This is a tenant that I use for demo. But when I'm talking about meeting options, I'm talking about when I come here and I say I want a new meeting. I can add my title, um, uh, but here on the right hand side, I've got this options dialog box. When I click the options dialog box, I get a bunch of settings that allow me to customize all sorts of things um, inside of this individual meeting. So you'll see here I've got end-to-end encryption. I've got some watermark controls that I can apply for this individual meeting, and I can choose who can present, who can record, who can transcribe. All of those features that I was just clicking through are all available to me as an individual to customize every time I schedule a meeting. But often when I'm talking to organizations, they want the ability to take this out of the hands of the user. Um,
Mm,
so the user doesn't have to make specific decisions every time they're
mm,
creating a meeting. Um, so uh, what sensitivity labeling and some of that advanced protection capability that I was walking through allows us to define very clearly based on sensitivity what settings are applied. Um, I'm going to show a bit of an end-to-end scenario here. This is a diagram that I've pulled together that helps me communicate to organizations how this can help from a sensitive meeting perspective. I'm going to start on the left-hand side here, um, and we've got a meeting organizer who schedules a Teams meeting. They either select a meeting template or apply a sensitivity label. That meeting then becomes highly sensitive. That link is sent via email to the attendees that were listed in the to or in the to field, and we can select. We want to say anybody who was invited can bypass the lobby. Um, that's great. Fairly straightforward, fairly typical of a Teams meeting, how you would kind of invite and control access. But what happens, for example, if we've got a bad guy down here on the left hand side, um, or even an insider who is trying to leak um, the join coordinates for a specific meeting? We've got the ability to block that meeting invite from being forwarded via a DLP policy. So let's say I receive an invite to a meeting that's discussing a product release. DLP policies can prevent me from forwarding that on to a member of the press, for example. Um, but I don't think that necessarily goes far enough, because that just stops us from being able to send the email or forward the email. But what if I took a photo of the join coordinates of the Teams meeting and leak those via other means? Um, it is a risk. So what we do in this instance, and there's some changes coming in future, but we effectively just block that user at the lobby.
mm,
When we're talking to customers and organizations about how to secure meetings, it's a bit of a change in adoption effort around, if somebody appears in your lobby and they weren't invited to the meeting, you either need to authenticate them, ask them who they are, or just
mm.
flat out deny them from entering. Um,
Mm.
so once we have that meeting stood up and all in progress, all of those controls that I was talking through earlier about, watermarks, maybe we're going to prevent chat. There's a whole raft of things we can do, um, as I've shown you, to protect those highly sensitive meetings that your organization might have. So when we think about applying protection to specific meetings, we are talking about, again, sensitive, highly sensitive meetings. So what we can do is dictate when a user creates a meeting, we can ask them to apply a specific sensitivity label, and I'll show you what that looks like in the admin portal in a minute. But here you can see just our recommendation as to what you might do. So applying a watermark, end-to-end encryption, you might want to turn that on for highly sensitive or highly sensitive meetings where you're presenting. You also may want to restrict when chat is on. So in a highly sensitive presentation, you might not want people chatting in the background. You can also do things like prevent copying content out of chat, full stop. So if
Mm.
you've got people might be typing sensitive content into the chat during a meeting like this, you might want to have that capability turned off, and will prevent the client from prevent users from copying text out of that chat dialog box. We also have the concept, and I'm aware that I'm introducing a few concepts here, but they're tied together. So we have this article that talks about how you should configure, or how we suggest you configure, depending on the sensitive nature of individual meetings. And then when we're talking through sensitivity labels and meeting templates are another capability I'll walk through in a minute. I'll give you a demo of what that looks like. But this is a great reference point when starting to talk about this capability. So what I'll do, I'll jump to the admin portal quickly, and I'll show you what this looks like.
Can we do
Um,
all of these settings in a single admin portal, or do we have to jump between security portal and Teams admin portal to do these?
good, yeah, good question. So we have to jump between both the compliance admin center here
Yeah,
on the left-hand side
yeah.
and the Teams admin center.
Okay.
So what I'll show you here, um, here's a view of the Teams admin center.
Yeah,
Um, and when we're looking at meetings, we have the concept of meeting templates.
yeah,
Um, Meeting templates, and I'll show you what the creation experience looks like. We've got the ability to change some of these settings. So when a user, um, uh, we might call this, I'm just going to call this template test, just for the purposes of this. But we can change um, uh, what those meeting options are when a user selects that template. So again, I might want to turn on um, people dialing in can bypass the lobby. Maybe that's something I want to turn on. Maybe I want to say I want to enable watermark for screen share and watermark for video, and I can save that. And this is it's going to use my admin profile here. Um, it's going to be a pretty empty Teams client, but effectively where that template appears is here. So you can see here we've got this templates option. So when a
yep,
user comes into their Teams calendar, hits this drop-down button,
yep.
you'll get a list of templates that are applicable to your organization. So here's that template test, and that actually came through really quickly, almost
Yeah,
instantly. So when I hit that template, you'll see here some options may be locked, right? So if we look
yeah.
at some of the settings that we changed, people dialing in can bypass the lobby is checked, and here's the watermark and shared content. The watermark for shared content and for the video feed. So again, it's just taking that decision making out of the user's hands. So
Right.
when they know they want a highly sensitive meeting, they can come up
Yeah.
there, um, come down, and say, maybe
Select the
that's highly
template.
sensitive. Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah.
again, just trying to take that control back in favor of the admin slightly,
Yeah.
and not have to make users make a decision intentionally.
But as a user, can I create a template for my own settings as well? No.
No, you can't.
Okay.
It's admin
Admin driven.
controlled,
Okay.
yeah, admin driven control. Um, so these are the meeting templates, and the way that we kind of suggest that you implement sensitivity labeling is by using in combination meeting templates and sensitivity labels.
Yeah.
So there are some features that are available to configure as a template setting. We've got this well documented. I'll see if I can jump to the article in a minute. But from a meeting templates perspective, here are the settings we can configure in meeting templates. And then when we come back to our admin center and I jump to the compliance portal, I'll jump there from scratch and I'll show you what it looks like from a sensitivity label perspective. This is our compliance portal. And here we have an information protection dialog. And if you've deployed sensitivity labels at your organization, you may have some pre-existing labels. And these labels appear in content. For example, if you're working in Office and you want to apply a specific label to a piece of content, maybe you need to mark it as personal, public, general, confidential, or highly confidential. Here are, let me just reload this page. That's where, this is where you will configure those particular labels. So you'll see here in scope for these kind of 5 labels we have for files and email. So again, in Outlook, you might have a requirement to select a sensitivity label, whether you want it to be consumed by the public or whether it's kind of organizational only content, and then have specific controls applied based on the label. So we're doing that as well for meetings here. We can apply those same protections that we're just looking at in meeting options by having a user select a specific label. You can see here in this particular policy under meetings, we've got a bunch of controls defined specifically for meetings.
I hope you have enjoyed the advanced protection part of Teams Premium. In this part, Mark is going to help us understand what are the customizations available on Teams Premium, particularly the meeting customization. So let's go and find out how to do that.
All right, so now what I'm going to show you is some of the ways in which we can customize the way that meetings look and feel for both your users and users who are joining meetings hosted in your tenancy. So I'm going to just jump into I'm here in the Teams Admin Center. I can go to customization policies here, and I'm going to edit the default policy here. You can, of course, add one and scope it to a different set of users, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to use this one. So I can come here and I can add a theme. So for example, if I had a logo, I could upload a specific logo that I wanted to use. And if, for example, I could upload a background, I'm just going to use this background that I've got here. And I can also change kind of the look and feel of some of the meeting controls that I've got inside of the meeting. So I can quickly preview this and take a look to see what that's going to look like from an end user experience perspective. So a lot of the colors that I've chosen, or specifically the colors that I've chosen here, will change. Some of the colors that you see inside of that meeting. So, for example, where there's a colored ring around somebody's headshot when they're talking, or their video feed when they're talking, it will be represented in that color, and a lot of the controls and toggles will also appear as that color that you select there. So really neat way to brand Teams to your specific organizational branding. And we can also opt to choose or allow the organizer to control what theme is on. So whether they want to use the organizational theme or the default theme. And then when we look at meeting backgrounds, so if you wanted to deploy a specific background to the organization, we can add again, this is a meeting background. So when I'm in a meeting, I might have a custom background behind me of the office setting, for example, or it might be an office with the organizational logo. You can add a variety of different backgrounds and deploy them through this customization policy. And you can see here you can add up to 50 images, and these images will appear in the order that you upload them. Interestingly, as well, if you want to make sure a blur's applied when people don't have a background selected, you can control that here as well.
In the last section, Mark explained us the Teams Premium customization options. In this part, Mark is going to help us understand the Teams Premium webinars and town halls. And Mark is going to take us through the admin portal walkthrough on how to configure these policies and configurations required for webinars and town halls. And I hope you are really going to enjoy this section. Let's go and find out how.
So we're going to switch gears now and talk a little bit about running events inside of Microsoft Teams and some of the capabilities and additional features that you get with Teams Premium. So when we're talking about meetings, specifically, there are a couple of different types that you've got included in your base licensing for Microsoft Teams. You've got meetings, webinars, town halls, and for a little bit longer, you'll have Teams live events there as well. Just bringing up this documentation to kind of showcase some of the things that we've got from a meetings, webinar, and town hall perspective, to give you an indication as to where Teams Premium changes some of the capability and enhances some of the capability. So you'll see here we've talked a lot about meetings, and we've talked about meeting templates and protection, things like watermarks, custom themes. All of those we've spoken through already. But when we're talking about webinars and town halls, Premium introduces a couple of things. For town halls specifically, we increase the capacity of town halls from by default 10,000 inside of a town hall to a premium town hall, which allows a scale of up to 20,000 participants. And then we can break that down even further from a feature comparisons perspective. So we've got capacity changes if you're licensed with Teams Premium, and we've also got some capability changes when you're licensed with Teams Premium. So for example, using this table, we can see some of the features. For example, custom backgrounds is a premium capability. End-to-end encryption, we've spoken about briefly, is premium, again, specifically for meetings. But when we're talking webinars and town halls, we've got the ability to really curate what attendees are seeing inside of a Teams webinar. So this is, I'll just flick over here quickly. So this is managing what people are seeing during the event. So this is a real-time live event that's occurring. You've got the ability here, and this is a bit of an indication as to how this works. But on the left-hand side, you've got all of the people that are in this meeting or in this webinar. But then on the right-hand side, you can see encompassed by the red box what attendees are actually seeing. And as a moderator of an event or as an organizer of an event, you've got the ability to pick and choose what's presented on screen at what particular point in time. So if there was content that you wanted to be seen alongside a video, or you wanted multiple video streams, you've got the ability to do that quite easily. You can simply kind of select a feed and send it live. So that's a really important feature if you're looking to produce kind of really curated experiences for attendees. We've also got some capabilities for RTMP in. So that's RTMP is real-time media protocol. So it's the ability to have custom or professional style video equipment providing a video stream into the meeting. So I don't know if we've got an example here, but if your equipment is able to broadcast a URL, the, inside of Teams, we can ingest that as a stream and then present that in the webinar. So you're not just limited in using your Teams client, you've got the ability to ingest a real-time stream as well. When we look at kind of the different types of events inside of Teams, and we spoke about licensing earlier on, when we're running a webinar or town hall and we require the premium capability, we only require the meeting organizer to be licensed with that feature for kind of all attendees to benefit. So we look at creation of a specific webinar or an event. In order to do that, we can just come in here and pick the type of event that we want. I can pick a webinar and then I can go through the experience of creating all of the various different type of information that's required to run a webinar. So we've got things like presenter bios, we can set custom themes, we can enable registration, we can also have, if I save some of the details here, add some details. I think I have to add some bios, and then I can come down here and I can adjust. Once I've configured all of the themes and everything that I want to have inside of my webinar, I can also have reminder emails go out to them on a specified basis. Here is kind of a bit of a template of what is sent in that email, and again, there's a bunch of different options I've got here for configuring emails to go out either pre the event or post the event to share recordings, for example. Now, when we're talking about webinars, often the next topic of conversation is how do I make my events more efficient? I think I was here somewhere. When we're talking about webinars, the next question is how do I make sure that the experience for my users is as good as possible? And of course, we've got some recommendations around and some documentation around how the people who are presenting inside of a webinar or a town hall or a live event are turning up, making sure they've got appropriate bandwidth, their cameras are high quality, those types of recommendations. But what if we have users inside of an organization? Perhaps you've got 1,000 people inside of one organization, all consuming the stream of that event all simultaneously. When we have an event, we typically, on a per client basis, are consuming somewhere from maybe 1 to 1.5 megabits per second of bandwidth per stream. If we've got 100 people in that event, or 1,000 people in that event, we start to really ramp up the bandwidth requirements. That's where Microsoft eCDN comes into play. Microsoft eCDN, as I said, is a this can be purchased as a standalone license type, but it's also included as inside of Microsoft Teams Premium. But when we're looking at eCDN at a very high level, on the left-hand side, before you have eCDN kind of installed and configured, each one of these little hexagons here is consuming an individual video stream. So each one of them is 1 to 1.5 megabits per second usage of bandwidth through the firewall out to just consume that stream. When we implement eCDN, we've got the ability for the Teams client to act as kind of a bit of um, a buddy for other Teams clients. So once it's in, you can see here, this client is consuming the video stream through the corporate firewall onto the corporate network, and then distributing that stream amongst clients internally. So the bandwidth requirements for an organization are significantly reduced. We've got organizations that we work with on a pretty regular basis that have got, somewhere even upwards of 20,000 users on their corporate network trying to consume an event. Without
Mm.
eCDN, it's really is a losing battle unless you've got significant bandwidth available to you through your internet gateway.
So once you enable it, is it like a peer-to-peer networking, like peer-to-peer connectivity, cache sharing, or whatever?
It is absolutely.
Yeah.
We've had eCDN for a long time through, we've had partners of ours deliver that capability.
Mm.
But what we've done through one of those partners, and it's now a first party offering, included natively in the Teams client, it is exactly that. It's a peer-to-peer video sharing to help reduce the bandwidth requirement on the internet gateway. So as you can see here, these are all kind of sharing video feeds peer to peer. And you can imagine, again, you might have 100 people on a particular floor in one of your buildings. You might want to have those peer together, and you get a lot of control from a configuration perspective on that uh, uh, those. You get a lot of control on those policies to control which clients peer with which clients. So
Yeah.
you don't want to have, obviously, people who are in the office peering with those who are on a VPN subnet, for example. And as I said, yeah, you get a raft of control on implementing that. So when we're talking about events in Microsoft Teams, specifically at the moment, Teams Town Hall, Teams Live Event, and those events hosted in Viva Engage, they are all supported by eCDN um, to help optimize those events.
The last section was power packed with lots of information on webinars, town halls, and I learned quite a lot learning about Microsoft ECDN to make the user experience better on these webinars and town halls. All right, so in this section, Mark is going to help us understand what are virtual appointments in Teams Premium and how can you configure these virtual appointments and who are the right audience or who is this virtual appointments for. Let's go and find out how.
All right, a couple more things that I'll run through, and then we'll wrap up. Um, the next set of capabilities that's included with Teams Premium is the ability for virtual appointments. Now we have virtual appointments in the Teams core licensing. What Teams Premium allows us to do is bring in some additional reporting and some additional capability in order to see, for example, who's waiting in a queue. And when we're talking about virtual appointments, we're really talking about um, business to consumer interactions. So, often an example that's used is, a telehealth appointment. Maybe you've got an appointment with your accountant or other kind of professional, where you need to meet with them, but you can't meet with them face to face for whatever reason. We've got a virtual appointments app inside of Teams, and I'll show you what that looks like. And I'll also show you some of the capability that's improved with Teams Premium. So first things first, we need the virtual appointments app. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to jump to my other tenant to show you what that looks like. Okay, so here is my Teams client. And in the side rail, I've got a virtual appointments app. This app can be added through the kind of more apps button here. I've just pinned this app to this Teams client, and that's something you can do as well via an admin policy if you need to pin this to multiple user Teams clients. So here we have the virtual appointments dashboard. So the example here is Corey is a um, someone who can be booked for a particular appointment type. And I can see here when I go across to the schedule, I can see I've got a couple of appointments coming up in my calendar. I've got an initial consult with Mark and another one with Clark Kent later in the day. Um, this is all kind of out of the box capability from the virtual appointments app. When we start to think about what is a premium capability, and you can see here we've got that marked by a diamond here. This jumps off to our documentation about what's included from a premium perspective, but largely it's the queuing capability. So I can come in here and I can see exactly who's in the queue, whether they've joined the meeting yet, and I can just say, here's the appointment that I need to join. I can come and click here and join it. The other thing that we get here is some really rich analytics. And because this is a demo tenant, there's not a lot of analytics available at the moment. If I run maybe the last 90 days, I might have one or two appointments in there that I've demoed previously. But you can see things like, what was the average wait time people were in the lobby, who attended, were there any SMSs involved in kind of reminding them to turn up. We can also have, what was the average duration, how many bookings were made, how many people didn't show up. So this is a really powerful platform. If you're looking to host or have the ability to host people in an appointment style scenario, this is absolutely the way to go. When I look at the schedule, I can book my own appointments. I can also have an external booking page that I can publish that my users can come to or my customers can come to and schedule an appointment. So you can see here I've got the ability to put in names, who is going to be in that particular appointment. So typically you would have 10 agents or 10 people that can take a particular appointment. I can select that person. And one of the really powerful things here is we can have attendees join from a web browser. And what this means is they don't have to download the Teams client to be able to join this meeting. They can just join directly from their browser on their device, as I said, without having to download the client. In some markets, we also allow for text message reminders, and we can in here if we had a booking. Let me see if I can adjust this. I can say allow for text message notifications, and then once that's saved, I can come back to the schedule. Back to the queue. And I should be able to send a text reminder here. In many markets around the world, this is a feature that is available. In Australia, where I am, this is not yet available, but is a roadmap feature that's coming. So if you want the ability to SMS folks to remind them of their appointment, either ahead of time or at appointment time, with the right links, so they can access it really quickly, this is the way to go.
So
Right.
who typically uses the appointment feature? Like, is it like um, a consultant or like an insurance broker where they have an appointment, they schedule it? I'm trying to
Yeah, you
figure
got
out.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've got to think about any scenario where you need to have um, an appointment. So it could be an appointment with your doctor, could be an
Yeah.
appointment with an accountant, could be an appointment with any kind of any scenario you can think of, right? The people that would need virtual appointments are the organisations providing that service.
Yeah.
So if I was a doctor's surgery or an accountant practice, or we even see a lot of usage of this in the public sector. So
Mm.
for government to citizen engagements, the benefit of it is that as an employee, of the organization providing that service, I can do it all from my Teams client. I don't need to get out of my Teams client into a separate app to host that appointment. It's
Mm.
all there right in kind of my flow of work all the time.
All right. Got it. Thanks. I hope you have learned everything from the last section on virtual appointments and how to configure this. This is the last section of this video segment I have done with Mark. In this section, Mark is going to help us understand the team's admin level capabilities and where can you find those details. Let's go and learn about that.
All right. Lastly, I think that covers a lot of the core capabilities of Teams Premium. But what I wanted to just jump into quickly was some of the admin capabilities that we have. I'm just going to jump into the admin portal here to show this. But we have some advanced notification and alerts that we can provide. I know I touched on it early on in the meeting or early on in the discussion about what if I wanted to monitor for real-time meeting quality, or if somebody is having a poor experience in a meeting that's happening right now.
Yeah.
You can see here we've got a couple of reports under our notifications and alerts policy here that adjust or can alert you on, for example, audio quality in progress meetings. And you could see there was denoted by a premium flag there. But you can say, I want to send a notification somewhere, and I'll show you where we can send that if a specific condition is met. So, if I think packet loss stats, and we do a really good job at documenting what our threshold for poor audio quality is as part of our quality dashboard or our core quality monitoring stats. So, for example, I want to report if packet loss is greater than 5%. Maybe I want to say if the round trip time is greater than a second, for example, I want to know about it. So again, I can say, who do I want to monitor? And this is where we apply a bit of a licensing check. So we only allow monitoring for users who have got a Teams Premium
Yeah.
license.
Mm.
And we can add specific users here. So I might want to monitor my demo user, Corey. And I want to post that alert into a specific team inside of a channel. Maybe I've got an IT support team. Maybe it's a VIP channel, and I'm using this to monitor, executive meetings to make sure that they're having a high quality experience all the time. So again, just a couple of additional administrative capabilities that exist for alerting of issues as they arise. Other than that, that about wraps it up. There are a whole heap of other features and settings and toggles that we haven't talked about, but I think if we did, we'd be here all day. So I'm happy to wrap it up there if you are.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much.